One disheartening teacher gave me at 21 who said, "Oh, I'm sorry, honey. I've never seen anybody retrain that." Actually, it is possible. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's not wishful thinking because I had plenty of decades of that. I'm just so thrilled that all these different schools of thought of information have been pulled together in a way that really makes sense deeply to me as a whole human, not just a dancer human, but also somebody who's struggling with certain limiting beliefs. I've been dancing professionally for 4 decades, and what I didn't learn there and I didn't learn in ballet training was self-awareness. I could make things happen with flexibility and strength, and I could mimic shapes. As I became professional and was in the echelons of more and more highly trained and more competitive people, I could recognize the sophistication in their movement, and I couldn't do that. I really wanted to, but I couldn't make that happen. I didn't know where the controls were. There have been incremental shifts along the way working with you. This has really integrated like all these different threads I've been pulling on in Feldenkrais work or Pilates work or yoga and even trauma therapy and other things to try to release different things. So I've been barking up all these different trees and they all have value, but this system or way of approaching the body has been so incredibly helpful to really shift my awareness to be at the center of where movement or animating myself comes from. And they live in the body in a certain pattern, but discussing them just in the story form wasn't changing them, even though I understand intellectually something I want to change. So to have a body practice that is supporting an understanding that I haven't gotten to with my head yet has also been really profound. So it's less about produce this result or I'm into anxiety, which doesn't work, nor is it love myself and be vague. It's like, not at all. It's about being able to have somewhere to go with a tightness here,
Mhm.
a way to integrate it into my body that feels good or like a different place to be that feels comfortable. If you can be comfortable in my body intentionally, then other things start to change. And then other things start to change. It's showing up to be like practically functional in a competitive environment as
Mhm.
under pressure in professional settings.
That's right. You're talking about this has been road tested because you do it in professional settings and it works. Yeah.
Yes, you go out, and if I'm going to, if I'm going to sing, or I'm auditioning for something, or I'm doing a tape, or I'm leading a rehearsal, or um, the ability to make a choice in the moment of doing, where I feel more on top of my legs, where I can feel confident that I know I'm not going to hurt myself.
Even though you know a lot of anatomy, you actually don't need to know the origin and insertion and all the anatomical precision in kind of just rote learning. It's really in the lived experience. If you go back to feeling connected and whole, those are the two overriding feelings that you just keep looking for, and things can self-organize in a way that perhaps you're not deliberately doing something specific with your psoas, because we don't have control, micro control over all those different muscles, but we do have control over how we relate one part of our body to another.
Because it's not just reorganizing. It is something that you talked about. It's like if you have a real foundation to go to, your body will recognize that it has a real support to go to, which is not efforting.
Mhm.
And then it also changes the dialogue with, it being a benevolent universe because you're like participating with a design that is designed to support you. That's literally, that
Mhm.
is to the degree that you can stand it to actually feel your body. You talk about the awareness coming up from the sacrum up the front of the spine and being able to even listen from the front of your spine and have this continue and all the way up to where your skull is pivoting if you follow along the front of this. And I'd probably do that 8 times a day. At
Mhm.
least. The first thing I do to wake up. I find it so encouraging in a really deep way that subverts the mind chatter
Mhm.
of myself, but in a really deep way that's encouraging to say, no, I am right here, right now in this design, and I get to participate with the wonder of this thing supporting my little limited awareness. Like the design is good. Like get on. The design is good. It's also infinitely problem solving. So this has been fascinating. This is what it feels like to write a new story. Your guidance on it is also, I respect as a teacher because it's so specific and it slows the roll enough so the nervous system part of the body has a chance to tune into what's happening, and you have such a clear map of how it's integrated. It promotes the curiosity and the stepping into, and doesn't say like, here's the math problem, get this right.
Mhm.
You've laid it out so well, because I could recognize that from really well constructed, dance exercises. Sometimes they lead you to a new weight shift understanding just by the construction. You're explaining exactly, and then room for the individuals to like find their way from fundamental, well, it's all fundamental human stuff,
Mhm. Yeah.
but application is incredibly effective.
I think we're talking
I,
about the coordination too, like teaching coordination when someone has a coordination block or something, like you don't slow it down for them and expect them to put the pieces together in any better way. You have to give them other things to do so that that coordination just naturally happens. I remember you saying that the vocal teacher who's very experienced could not teach you what you needed to learn because it wasn't a vocal issue really. It was a whole system organization and a whole person thing that you were processing and
yeah,
changing.
absolutely. Obviously, you create patterns, and how does one shift or change those patterns? Your synthesis of understandings allows me to take all of those like much more, it's like they want to go together.
Mhm.
Like you're talking about slowing something down so much for coordination. It's not like I'm not benefiting from doing simple things more slowly, but then when I go to stand up and do whatever more complicated thing at bar or something, it's all proceeding from an awareness that I couldn't get to before.
Mhm.
And then you go, oh my God, this isn't so hard.
Yeah. Yeah, and, when you say that, I think that part of the reason is, like, when you're learning something, you run into a barrier, the only they're still in that realm of the discipline,
Hmm.
and when you can drop below the discipline, you you can build up more resources. And same thing with the story, right? Your personal narrative and story. The Leslie story has a certain pattern that sits in your body, but if you drop down below Leslie, then you get into the human story of a body on earth. And you can work on that level and then come back up to Leslie's story, and suddenly you have more pieces to work with. You have more resources to work with, more raw material to work with.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with this. And I think this is what the voice teacher was trying to say, because I worked with her 2023 and took a break for a while and then came back after I started with you.
Mhm.
And she's like, what are you doing? What has happened? What is happening?
Yeah. Yeah, it's so fun to see that because I have another client who went to her yoga teacher after a year. She studied with him like at a resort, and he's like, "Wow, like your hips are fixed. That's so different. What's going on? Your shoulders are now in place." And yeah, it happens quickly because you're working below the discipline and in the human system as it exists on Earth, which is really about that long evolutionary story of a human standing on Earth rather than the history of any discipline at all, actually.